Guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about an individual who has been on my radar, and by on my radar I mean my best friend is very much into K-pop, and though this individual doesn't exactly fit into K-pop, and you'll see why, my best friend has been telling me about what the individual has been up to. Now the individual themselves is called Oli London. They are a non-binary musician slash influencer, and they've been receiving a lot of heat due to some of the decisions they've made. They have a very intense inclination, fascination, I don't even know what the right term to call it is, but they are very much invested in the Korean world, in the K-pop world, in anything Korean, basically. And what they did is they had, I believe, over 15 surgeries in order to look like Jimin from the band, the famous K-pop band BTS. This in and of itself I find troubling, simply because we've seen in the past there have been people who have gotten operations to look like Pamela Anderson, Justin Bieber, and while I am generally speaking in the camp of do whatever you want for yourself as long as it's not harming other people, it's hard for me to believe that this wouldn't be mentally taxing, because when you dedicate a lot of your money, realistically, I believe Oli London spent over £125,000 on the many surgeries to look like a K-idol. It's hard for me to believe that it won't have an impact on mental health, because I believe in a way it is separating who you were born as, who you are, and you're slowly getting farther and farther and farther from it. Now, I know one of the arguments that often comes in when we talk about this issue, which Oli London said that they identify as transracial, which I've discussed before. It's not something I really stand by, honestly, and in this video I will try to be more objective than opinionated, because like I said, on one side I want you to do what you want to do, it's your body, it's your life, blah blah blah. On the other side, there's something that makes me feel very uncomfortable about people trying to change races. Now, one thing I know for a fact is whenever I make this argument, there will be a few people in the comments who say, well, what's the difference between that and being trans? Because when you're trans, you're deciding that you don't identify with whatever you're born with and you want to be something else. And for me, the difference is that if you are trans, there's going to be gender dysphoria, there's going to be discomfort in your body looking at yourself with what you were born with, whatever that is, and you want to change that to be at peace with yourself. Now, some might make the case that it's the same here with transracialism, but I do feel that it is different, because I feel like one is at the core who you are versus another one feels more aesthetically based. Now, of course, certain people who are trans decide to get surgery to look more X or Y or whatever. I feel like at the core, it's about the dysphoria and the discomfort and the hatred that can come from feeling like you were born in the wrong body. And many trans people, if they decide to do so, change their primary and secondary characteristics in order to match what they feel like is who they were meant to be slash who they are. Regardless, like I said, I'm going to keep the majority of my opinion outside of this. I'm just saying there is a difference, and I don't think the two are actually comparable. However, since their last procedure, Oli London has come out and identified as Korean, which they're allowed to do, but at the same time, there were people in the comments who are Korean or Asian in some respect who found this insulting and unrealistic. Now, I want to go through a couple of pieces of articles where Oli London themselves say what they feel, just to give you more context as opposed to just hearing it from me. Now, finally, I feel Korean, said London. I identify with the Korean community. Maybe they will accept me more now because I have the look. Maybe people will think I'm actually Korean, which would make me really happy. They can see how much I love their culture, because this is extreme length I've gone to because I love Korea so much. I just want to make Jimin proud as well, because Jimin is my ultimate idol. I want him to be proud. I'm sure he'll be proud that I look exactly like him now. I have his eyes. I finally have Jimin's Korean eyes, and they're so, so beautiful. I'm so, so happy with my new look. I can't wait to see the final results when my swelling goes down. Now, this is where there's a disconnect for me, because if you identify as something, from my understanding, it should be more than just aesthetic. identifying with something like, for example, even a sexual orientation, it wouldn't just be the aesthetic of being bi or the aesthetic of being lesbian or the aesthetic of whatever. It should be something internal that you really connect with. And that being said, I'm sure Oli London probably really feels some connection to Korea and being Korean. That being said, I do find it a bit troubling, significantly troubling, that they are trying to not only seem Korean, but seem specifically like Jimin, because I'm not a celebrity. That's the whole idea. But if I were a celebrity, I think I would be very creeped out by someone trying to look exactly like me, which goes back to the mental health thing of why is there the obsession with looking exactly like someone? Now, of course, all of us have traits of the people we're fans of, stans of, idols, whatever, that we love, sure. But it is an extreme step to go to the point of getting plastic surgeries to look exactly like them. And I think in this case, it seems like Oli London is using this as a validating thing of, look, I spent this much money to look like this person, therefore, hopefully the community will accept me. When in reality, the community, I can't speak for them, but I assume that they would probably accept you just as a fan of BTS and a fan of Jimin as much as they are. There's no need to go to this extreme, but the feeling the need to go to this extreme is what makes me wonder about mental health. And that's not me diagnosing them, that's me saying in the future I feel like it could very well turn out to be an issue. And there's also, like I said, this focus on Jimin and Jimin's reaction, which is a bit of a catch-22, because what happens if Jimin were to disavow all of this? What if Jimin were like, I don't like this makes me uncomfortable, blah, blah, blah. Then what? You know what I mean? So I think that's also a big risk taken, aside from everything else I've noted. So then Oli London actually tweeted, transracial is a thing, I invented it. If you can be transgender, you can be transracial. Live your life to the fullest, be who you want to be, and spread love. I agree with the sentiment of being who you want to be, but I also think that there may need to be a line drawn before this gets out of control. And when I say out of control, I'm talking strictly about mental health. Now, obviously, like I said, since I'm not Korean, I can't say if this is offensive or not. That's for Koreans to decide. And I feel the same way about people who get plastic surgery to an extreme. And as I've said, I'm not against plastic surgery, but I do think it's important to note when plastic surgery, you're doing it to enhance yourself and to feel better, as opposed to feeling like you need to, or like you're ugly without it, or like you aren't worthy without it. Those are two very different feelings, and I think it's important to determine which is which. Oli London has had multiple surgeries. And the first thing I thought of when I thought of this was the BBL surgery, the Brazilian butt lift, which has become relatively popular on social media. And the thing that a lot of people fail to know is how many people almost or actually do die from that type of surgery. I feel like because it's done so often, there's this forgetting of how invasive it is and how actually dangerous it is to get that kind of surgery. Oli London is lucky that all of their surgeries worked out and nothing went wrong, like they're survived, they're fine. But I also think it's important when advocating for anything, not that I'm saying they are, but if you get multiple surgeries, I think if you have a big fan base, it's important to remind people that they need to really do their research, because these surgeries are for aesthetic purposes, but that does not mean that they're just surface level surgeries. So Oli London continued saying, I know a lot of people don't understand me, but I do identify as Korean and I do look Korean now. I do feel Korean. I don't identify as British, so please don't refer to me as British because I identify as Korean. That's just my culture, my home country. That's exactly how I look now, and also identify as Jimin. That's my Korean name. I know it's a little bit confusing for some people. Nobody's ever come out as Jimin or Korean, but this is something that you guys know if you followed my journey for the last 8 years. Picking the name Jimin on top of everything I find disconcerting, because it seems less about personal identity and more about looking exactly like an idol. Can I confirm that? No, that is just what I'm gathering from what I'm reading. So I went back and looked at Oli London interviews prior. Now, it is important to note that as time goes on, you can change your opinion. As you gather more information, your opinion will change, and that's normal, and I think that's healthy. However, interestingly enough, back in the day, I'll put the date on the screen. So Oli London said, "So I'm not actually changing my race. I have deep respect for Korean culture. It's cultural appreciation, not appropriation, so I'm very, very respectful of Korean culture. It's just I'm really in love with Korean culture. I really understand it. I've been learning that language, so I'm incredibly respectful to Korean people. Korean people love me. They're very kind to me. They're very nice. They do not have a problem with it." London continued, "As long as it doesn't affect people, as long as it doesn't hurt people, I'm going to do what makes me happy, and I'm going to do something because I love Korea. I love K-pop." So that was their opinion prior to coming out as non-binary, first of all, because you'll see that the pronoun is different, and then recently coming out as Korean. None other than Rachel Dolezal came out in support of Oli London, as well as Ben Shapiro and a few other people. But I wanted to mention Rachel Dolezal in particular because she's been particularly notorious. So here we have Rachel Dolezal, blonde, light eyes, with her parents with adoptive children. And then we have Rachel Dolezal at a rally for immigration rights. And you can see her appearance changed significantly. So basically, the whole scandal with Rachel Dolezal is that she pretended to be Black when in fact she was not, and she was born from two white parents. I found an article and it said, "People were, is she Black? Is she white? What is she? What are you mixed with?" She says, "Usually I'd say my dad is Black because to say that neither one is Black creates this really long conversation." I don't think it'd be a very long conversation. I don't know that person. I don't feel like I owe them that long conversation. They're going to be looking at me as if I'm crazy. The construction of the new family continued when one of her adopted brothers, Isaiah, moved in with Dolezal when he was 16. She began calling herself his mother, although later she did adopt him as her son. That required more adaptations of the truth. So just in that small paragraph, I will link all the articles below if you want to read everything. If you haven't heard of Rachel Dolezal, etc., everything will be linked down below. She seconded Oli London, which is not a great person to have on your team. Having Rachel Dolezal, truly, no. Although London's posts have ignited fierce debates on social media, they have received support from Dolezal, who made headlines around the world in 2015 when it was revealed that she was a white woman identifying as Black. Oli London posted a video on June 26th titled "Being Korean." And I will put a little bit of their video here.
So I am going to come out today and say that I've been transitioning. I've been very unhappy with who I am deep down for the last 8 years. And I've had like 18 plastic surgeries now. And I've just had a facelift, a brow lift, a temple lift, an eye surgery, a canthoplasty. And my teeth done as well, but I am coming out as non-binary. I don't feel I identify as male or female. I just feel like I'm just in the middle, and my pronouns are they, them, Korean, Jimin, because I know a lot of people don't understand me, but I do identify as Korean, and I do look Korean now. I do feel Korean. I don't identify as British, so I know it's a little bit confusing for some people. Nobody's ever come out as Jimin or Korean, but this is something that you guys know if you've followed my journey for the last 8 years. I've really struggled with identity issues, with who I am, with who I am. It's a very tough one, so I've finally had the courage. I've undergone my racial, can't think of the word, transitional surgery. I've transitioned to a non-binary person, they, them, Korean, Jimin, and I finally have the Korean look, so I'm actually really happy.
The video itself, I think, is not truly helpful to what they were trying to accomplish, because they said that they identify as they, them, /Korean /Jimin, which makes this all look like somewhat of a joke, because pronouns are pronouns, that's fine. Tell us which pronouns you want, we will use them for you. But lumping in Korean and also Jimin as a pronoun or the equivalent just doesn't make much sense, in my opinion, because otherwise my pronouns would be she /her /Italian /Julia? I don't even know. But regardless, it's a relatively short video. It's 6 minutes. I'll link it down below if you want to see everything. Overall, I'm both troubled and unsure of where to position myself with this, because on one end, like I said, if it's your life, it's your body, you can do whatever you want with it. At the same time, I also think, is there a point where this can go too far in the sense of it could hurt your mental health, in the sense of it could be offensive to people of whatever race you're trying to transition into? Is it healthy on the long term? And even there was a comment under Oli London's video saying, as an Asian, this is offensive. Not all Asians have slanted eyes. My eyes are not slanted, and most of my family members have normal eyes. Even Jimin doesn't have slanted eyes. Edit, I'm East Asian, 100% Chinese. Now, of course, this is just one comment, but they made this comment because in the video, Oli London had just had eye surgery, and I believe they still had like tape on the side of their eyes or stitches, whatever the case may be, and therefore them saying that they felt Korean could come off as, oh, now that my eyes are a certain shape, I am Korean, when in reality there is a variety of people who have a variety of eye shapes, and that doesn't make you X or Y. Regardless, you can let me know how you feel in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.